is not the grateful recipient of the new contract with Love Production. For ITV, hard commercial broadcaster, to have made a firm offer to have the card being firmly attached, it's just unthinkable. They'd be crazy to do it. So, I mean, it could be, yes, that Channel 4 have made a very large offer for a large amount of money. But there's another issue here, of course, which is that without the talent being in place, the other point to make here, of course, is that this will provoke a conversation about Channel 4. Channel 4's been fighting off the attempts from some part of the government to see a private time in the current although commercial finance. Channel 4's always argued that commercial.
That the association also found disabled drivers are often met with aggression and abuse when they approach able-bodied drivers taking up their spaces. With me now in studio, John McFarlane, a disabled driver living in Tullamore in County Offaly, and also here Stephen Clusky, campaigner on wheelchair accessible transport, and both of them are members of the DDAI, the Disabled Drivers Association of Ireland. John, your association is holding a motor show and conference next weekend at the RDS, and at this conference the proposal will be made to have tougher punishments for people who block up spaces that they shouldn't be using. Why?
For the simple reason, what you're doing is you're actually denying people the liberty to get around. Most people have a car and they have to use a car. If you are parked in a disabled driver's space, or shouldn't really call them disabled driver spaces, they are spaces designated for those with disabilities of some nature. They may be a passenger, they may be a driver, so you've got to go from there. The other thing is you have to recognise that they're not all in wheelchairs, although the sign is a wheelchair, they're not all in wheelchairs.
What is your own disability that requires you to have these kind of spaces?
I had polio when I was 18 months old. I'm paralysed in both legs, partially in my right arm, so I can't walk at all. I used to get around with some crutches and carriages at one stage, but even then I had to use a wheelchair, and you had to be able to open the car door alongside you to get in and out. Now, a standard car parking space, you can't open the car door wide to get in and out with a wheelchair.
Stephen, your background is different. Tell me what happened in your case.
So I had an accident in August 2002. I was with some friends. I fell from a hay bale, breaking my neck, which left me paralysed from the neck down. I was 18 at the time, just about to get to 60 around Belvedere College, and turned my world on its head upside down. And it's still the case today. That was 14 years ago.
So you don't drive?
I don't. I'm a passenger in a disabled vehicle, fully accessible vehicle.
Right, and obviously your requirements for those spaces are a bit as strong as John's. It's just you need somebody to be driving you around the place.
Exactly.
And just give me a little bit more information, John, about the kind of things that people said. You certainly, your members were served.
I've got a hangover. That was one of the ones. Nice one. My Chinese is more important. The other thing that happens quite often is that you'll go up and you'll be wanting to go into a space and you'll sort of almost demonstrate, because more often than not people, for certain me myself, I will not actually tackle somebody, because more often than not you're going to meet with abuse. I've actually met, not in this country admittedly, I've been met with physical abuse or threatened physical abuse, where I'm saying to somebody, you're not supposed to be parked there, you're able-bodied, and working through from that. You're not going to have a go, you're not going to put yourself at risk. It's just not worth it. But it is taking away a person's liberty, their right to get around. Maybe in some cases, and I've seen this on occasions, it actually stops people from getting to a hospital appointment, and quite often for a person with a disability, getting into that hospital appointment is absolutely vital, and they can only get out in a wide space.
Stephen Clusky, the word mojo has been quite popular in the last 24 hours or so, but you're a co-founder of Mobility Mojo, and you launched wheelchairtaxi.ie 2 years ago to help people find wheelchair accessible taxis. Tell me about Mobility Mojo first of all.
So yeah, what we are is pretty much a trip advisor for disabled people. There's a lot of fragmented information out there in regards to access for hotels, for tourist attractions, pubs, restaurants, transport, and we solve that problem, provide all the information that someone needs for a safe and comfortable trip, and unfortunately no connection to the Taoiseach.
Well, maybe you need a hotline into his department to try and get him to use some of his newly discovered mojo to make people sit up maybe a bit more. What kind of fines are there for people to take up spaces that they're not entitled to use at the moment?
At the present time, for those which are underneath statute control, is €80. Needs to be doubled at least. In the States, in quite a few places in the States, they actually whacked the fine up to €400, and it cured the problem virtually overnight. €80 is not enough.
Now, when you say statutory, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, sorry, I think the problem lies for me, what I've seen is enforcement. There might be a fine there, but I've never seen anyone done for this abuse. And it's if it was enforced, I think it would go a long way to solving this problem.
And have you yourself come across
Yeah, so I had an incident there last year where in Malin Head there was a guy parked in a disabled spot, and there was a spot beside him, I was in that, and I came back from a bit of shopping, and I said it to him, I said, you know, you're in a disabled parking spot, and he said, yeah. I said, have you got the badge to park there? And he said, no, and he rolled his window back up and went back to reading his newspaper, and it took me a minute to get back into the van. I was angry, I felt annoyed, and he pulled out of the spot in some Mercedes, and he went to pull off, and the car put out, and I drove off and I could see him trying to start the car, so there was a little bit of karma there. Felt a little good, but going back to the fines, I think the fine was too small, and we also asked people through mobility mojo social media whether they thought how many points would be a good option for someone parking in a disabled spot. Obviously our customers are quite biased, but overwhelmingly they were in favour of a penalty point option.
Yeah, John, you were talking, I think in very precise, maybe legal terminology about the spaces that are covered by those statutorily based parking spaces. Now, does that cover, for instance, spaces in supermarket car parks?
It doesn't cover any of the spaces you can go on private ground. And what will happen there is that they are not policed. Certainly not in this country. There are some countries where the supermarkets have actually taken a very proactive view, but not here. And one particular chain actually which operates in Ireland has taken a proactive view in parts of the UK. But there is nothing you can do about it unless there is some sort of clamping. And I've seen signs up in car parks saying blue badges only, disabled badges, you will be clamped 160 for getting out, etc. I've never seen it enforced.
No, here's one though, a text has just come in. It's a pet hate of mine that supermarkets do not monitor who's using disabled spaces. However, I have also seen card holders park in these spaces only for the passenger to get out who can be clearly seen to be not disabled. Their response is, I'm a card holder and I'm entitled to park here. I've given up challenging people, says this person.
With rights come responsibilities, with concessions come responsibilities. This is just as socially unacceptable for, say, myself, taking my wife down to the supermarket and taking up a blue badge spot, and I'm just going to sit in the car and read my book or listen to the radio, as it is for somebody who is not a badge holder to park in there.
Yeah, I mean, another one from John in Limerick, and you might pick up on this one, Stephen. The point he said, or the question he raised is, should disabled drivers be allowed to let their family members to use their badges?
No, I mean, most people would agree that's not a good idea. The disabled person has to be with them in the car. But bear in mind that there is a large percentage of people with disabilities a large percentage of disabilities are hidden. So it's a trick. MS or Parkinson's in early stages technically has a disability, but it might not be visible to someone who challenges them on it.
Yes, and but it's also, if you're parking in a street, you have a situation, I think you have an incident that you could tell us about, John, where you actually need space behind your vehicle, don't you?
Yes, I use a power wheelchair, and I actually use my wheelchair as my driver's seat, which means I have to go in through the back of the vehicle. And I had an instance where I was parked on the street in a blue badge spot, came out to find a vehicle parked hard up behind me, partially on the yellow hatched area, also with double yellow lines, and partially into the blue area. And there was a parking attendant coming down the road, and I sort of said, can you do something about this? I want to get back into my car. It was raining as well. I want to get in my car. And he went, oh yes, I know. Went off. The vehicle was moved, and I turned around to him and I said, we're in a situation where, what are you going to do about this? If people are parking like that, you have statutory authority, and surely you should be enforcing it. He said, well, that's about me to do. It's parked outside, sure.
Yes, and it's just one of those ones where I suppose like the kind of pig-headedness that you talked about, Stephen, in that example in Malin Head, the guy in the market said there was a bit of caramel, like
a little bit of caramel.
His engine to cut out, but it just seems beyond belief.
To be honest, you do feel powerless. I mean, you can say it to someone, if they ignore you, there's very little you can do. So if there was a much higher level of enforcement, they could go some way to tackling this issue. And that's what we want to see. But it is fragmented as well, like the private car parks and the public. It's difficult to know. The Gardaí don't have any authority over the private car parks. So if there was some sort of working together on that between public and private, again, we might be able to get some way to tackle that.
John, here's another one. In our local big supermarket, there are so many spaces for disabled people that there are big areas vacant all the time. This is frustrating for older people like me who are creaky but not officially disabled.
I know, and it's one of the ones where I always feel very sympathetic towards people when I see somebody elderly coming out of a vehicle with a Zimmer frame, unable to walk, they're in a blue badge space and they're not. You know, there's got to be some give and take in those circumstances. It is very unfortunate. The only thing I would do in those circumstances, I'd turn around, I would encourage those people who are old, creaky, can't actually manage to walk in the distance, get in touch with the IWA, get in touch with the DDAI, apply, get hold of a form and see whether you can get yourself a blue badge. If you are not able to walk and you're not able to walk the distance and you need it, apply for it. It's the same way as...
And who's the referee in this? Is it your GP or what staff has to be reached?
There are certain criteria. It changes in different jurisdictions here. Basically, if you can't walk more than about 50 metres, but your GP has to sign the form, say what's wrong. It also has to be endorsed by the local guard.
Another one here in Donegal says a disabled driver at our local shop blocked a driver in a disabled parking space. The driver, when he came out, was not happy as he was blocked for a while. Everyone in the shop cheered the disabled driver. Is that something out of practice that you've seen or heard of near much, Steve?
I mean, I've been tempted to try it myself, but I just haven't had enough courage, I think, so far. But I do know of a doctor who has a similar situation. He's a parking space in his practice, and his name is on the space, and if someone parks in it, when he gets there at 9 o'clock in the morning, he'll park right behind them, get out of his car and leave there till 6 or something in the evening, dropping the person in. So I have been tempted to do that, but just not yet.
There was an action group, a fair Millicent action group in Berlin, who actually took it up, and they actually bought cars which were basically NCT type Vegas, and they went and found them and dumped them behind the people who were actually parked illegally. The other one, very quickly for you, is that the other thing which is very annoying, especially for somebody like Stephen, who's got a side access, is where you've got the extra space and people go and actually park in between the two cars.
Yeah, there's no end to people's creativity when it comes to making life difficult for others, is there? Well, thank you both for coming in. Good luck with that event that you're having in the RDS. Stephen Trusky, campaigner on wheelchair accessible transport, and my thanks as well to John McFarlane, disabled driver living in Tullamore. We'll have news after this.
Today with John O'Rourke on RTE Radio 1. If it's a little looking after you're after, come discover the ocean of indulgence that is the Island Bay Spa. From relaxing in the tranquility of our state-of-the-art thermal suite to rejuvenating with a series of treatments.
Aren't there much better ways to roll €1,000 than paying a TV license fine? Remember, if you have a TV, you need a TV license. It's the law. To get yours, visit tvlicense.ie.
The Island Bay Spa. Taking out what life puts in.
Brought to you by the Department of Communications, Climate Action and Environment.
This is Suzanne Fraser, account director of Lear Chocolates, a premium chocolate manufacturer who specialise in seasonal gifts.
The mobile phone is our office. 3 keeps us connected to our customers, suppliers and the factory at all times.
She's explaining how 3, becoming Lear's one-stop communications provider, has delivered tangible benefits to her business. According to Suzanne, the 2 companies work perfectly together because they share the same ethos when dealing with customers.
3 provides us with the same high level of customer service that we provide to our customers. It's brilliant that 3 are so proactive and supportive.
Discover everything that 3 can do for your business at 3.ie/business. 3 works for business.
Many of us believe we have life insurance, while we may just have mortgage cover. Protecting your home is important, but with VHI Life, you can help make sure your family will be financially supported should you die. VHI Life is life insurance made simple for only €21 per given home, and VHI healthcare members get a 10% discount. Call us on 1800 or search VHI Life. €21.39 per month is based on a 37-year-old non-smoker for a 20-year term and cover of €200,000 and includes the 1% insurance limit. VHI
on Rising Time. I'm here Monday to Friday from 5:30 with all your news, sport and weather and the best possible soundtrack to set you up for the day. Rising Time, weekday mornings from 5:30 on RTE Radio 1.
Listen to Today with Shona Road with the RTE radio player. Apologies, I wasn't watching the clock. It's almost 3 minutes past 11 now. Over to the RTE newsroom and Brian Jennings.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning from the newsroom. Trucks carrying aid have begun crossing into northern Syria from Turkey this morning. This follows reports that suggest the latest ceasefire appears to have largely held during its first night. The Syrian army has said the truce brokered by the US and Russia will last 7 days, although it reserves the right to respond to any breaches. President Higgins and the Taoiseach have led tributes to the courage and service of the Coast Guard volunteer Katrina Lucas, who died yesterday when a rigid inflatable boat capsized near cliffs at Kilkee in County Clare. Ms. Lucas, a 41-year-old mother of 2, was searching for a missing man with 2 other volunteers when the boat overturned in heavy swells. Gardaí have begun excavating a site in South Kerry today in the search for a man who went missing from the area more than 25 years ago. Charles Brooke Pickard was abducted and disappeared from Castle Cove on the ring of Kerry in April 1991. The site is located in a forest approximately 20 kilometres from Waterville. The Taoiseach said while he's not ruling out an inquiry into Nana's sale of his Northern Ireland loan book to an American investment firm, a report by the Controller and Auditor General on the matter should first be considered by the Dáil Public Accounts Committee. The report into the Project Eagle sale is to be published tomorrow. It's believed to have found that hundreds of millions of euro may not have been realised by the sale. 3 men have been arrested by detectives investigating the murder of a prominent loyalist paramilitary. UDA member John Borland was shot and killed in North Belfast last month. All 3 suspects have been taken to Musgrave Police Station in Belfast for questioning.
RTE Radio 1 weather with Aer Lingus. With direct flights to Hartford, Connecticut launching this September, when Smart wants to discover New England, Smart flies Aer Lingus.
Often cloudy today across East Leinster with the risk of rain at times. Elsewhere, patchy mist and fog clearing later this morning to give a largely dry day with some sunshine. Highest temperatures 16 to 18 degrees. And that's all from the newsroom for now.
Brian, thanks indeed for that. That's Brian Jennings in the news, and we'll have a summary of the latest headlines just before handing over to Ronan at midday. Right now, though, time for the latest from the sports desk. Warwick Lodge, good morning.
Good morning, Sean. The draw for the Irish Daily Mail FAI Cup semi-finals took place this morning. The reigning champions Dundalk will have a home tie against Derry City, while John Caulfield's in-form Cork City will travel to Inchicore to face the 2014 winners St Patrick's Athletic. Both games will take place on Sunday the 2nd of October, and kick-off times will be staggered to ensure that both games are screened live on RTE2 television. The group stages of the Champions League get underway tonight with 8 games, including Barcelona versus Celtic, Manchester City at home to Borussia Mönchengladbach, and Arsenal away to Paris Saint-Germain. In Gaelic Games, John Kiley is to become the new Limerick senior hurling manager. His name will be put forward for approval at tonight's county board meeting. Kiley was manager of the Limerick under-21 team that won the All-Ireland last year. Former Clare coach Paul Connor will be part of his management team. Provisional fixtures for next year's Alliance Football and Hurling Leagues have been circulated to county boards. Dublin will begin the defence of their Alliance Football League title away to Cavan on Sunday the 4th of February. The opening night match on the 3rd of February is Mayo versus Monaghan. Sometimes I like to start the league with a bang and a big match to start it off, but it's going to just ease into action this year. The hurling will get underway on the 11th and 12th of February. The opening weekend matches there: Dublin versus Tipperary, Cork against Clare, and Kilkenny versus Waterford. At the Paralympic Games today, Nicole Turner goes in the 400 metres freestyle heats, while Alba Kelly is in action in the 100 metres backstroke heats. And Philip Eaglesham goes in the shooting, and in the solar sailing, John Toomey, Austin O'Carroll and Ian Costello lie 12th heading into today's races. Peter Lorre is to retire from the European Tour at the end of the current season. He won the Spanish Open in 2008, but over the past few years he's struggled to maintain his full playing rights, and he's decided to leave the tour. And in racing, the Harvest Festival continues at the Stoke in Artigue, third in the feature there, and the annual trip to the seaside takes place at Laytown. First race in the stand at 3:05.
Brian, sorry, I should say, Warwick, thanks indeed for that. and lots of texts coming our way about parking spaces for people with disabilities. Jerry says part of the problem is surely the fact that so many people would appear to have these disabled driver passes, and not everyone would appear to need them. I know a woman who plays golf regularly, but because of her back pain, and that's in quotes, she has one of these passes. Another one, yes, sorry, I just saw that earlier, about whether people should be allowed to let their family members use their badges. Another text coming in our local, yes, sorry, my apologies, I had read those ones already, no point in repeating them, and we shall be hearing from Kilkee just now, actually yesterday in Kilkee in County Clare, while searching for no, we're not going to Kilkee now, we're going to Brian Hayes, my apologies. Brian Hayes, Fine Gael, member of the European Parliament for Dublin. Good morning to you.
Hello, Sean. How are you?
You were at the party thinking in Newbridge in Kildare yesterday, and would it be fair to say it wasn't a very comfortable time?
No, actually, it was good to have a discussion on the election, if that's what you're referring to. There'd be a lot of speculation about what was going to be in Marion Coy's report, and I was glad that she took us through that report yesterday. We had a very good discussion afterwards. I think politics and politicians the world over focus more on the next election than the last election, but I think it was only right and proper, given our disappointment with the election result of the campaign, that we would reflect and ask someone of Marion's standing for independence really to produce this report, which he's done. And I think, we have to be big enough and honest enough as a big political party to take the positives and the negatives.
What about her assertion that campaign headquarters had a fortress mentality?
I was in the middle of it, and it didn't seem like a fortress to me, but when any campaign is under pressure in terms of losing votes and losing support, that might be the view of people on the outside. I think we underestimated going into the election, as I said previously before, the unpopularity of the government. I think people were sick to their teeth of what was nearly 7 years of austerity, either delivered by us or by Fianna Fáil. And I think we probably overestimated the degree to which the economic message, which we were getting back in our research, was actually going to win the day. But it wasn't so much a fortress. I mean, a lot of the people who had been behind these campaigns, much more skilled and talented people that I had been involved in 2011, had been involved before that. And these are people who were involved once again in 2016. But the circumstances were different, and I think once you're in government, having done the things we had to do, it was inevitable that we would lose seats. I didn't expect that we would lose the number of seats we did. And I think what Marion Coy did yesterday in the report is, I need to do things differently. Not just in the run-up to election campaigns, but right the way across the party. I think that was reflected in what Peter Thomas said earlier today as well.
Have you and people at the head of Fine Gael involved in the election, have you asked the people who carried out the research for you for a refund? I mean, €200,000 an offer the money to spend on bum research.
Well, it wasn't all bum research now. I mean, the reason why that money was spent was to get the kind of quantitative and qualitative analysis about what was going to happen constituency by constituency and in messaging. And had we not applied that research, we wouldn't have managed to get, what was it, virtually a third of all the seats on a quarter of the vote. People forget that.
So you would have lost even more than the 26 seats that you lost?
Because that's, yeah, and I think that's why it's important. Research has to be, I think what Marion Coy suggested, she's right. It has to be based not about trying to make sure that the arguments we're making are totally watertight, but it's about trying to reach out as well and finding out where things are. But I mean, the biggest research that was done of all, Sean, was done by RT in the exit poll. I was looking through that the other night, 180 odd pages of it. Fascinating material, even now, some months after the campaign. 15% of people on their way to the polling stations made up their mind. In the last week, another 20% made up their mind. So I mean, 35% of the Irish public in the last week decided what way they were going to vote. And we lost 4-1 in terms of those state switchers in the campaign. So we've a lot of lessons to learn from that. But how much of this was actually preordained because of the fact we were in government is the big imponderable here. And I think that's something that we've got to think about firmly in the time ahead.
I'm looking at some other figures here, Brian Hayes, that Fine Gael in total got 2,394,394 last year, and you had a carryover of almost 890,000 from 2014. You had a war chest last year of 3.2 million. That's a huge amount of taxpayers' money to have to spend on an election, isn't it?
Well, it's not spent on the election, Sean. The money that we spend on the election is based on what all political parties raise. The funding that goes into political parties to keep them in place, to pay the people to do the work on research and policy and development, is actually funded by the state since the new rules came in. And that's the case for all political parties, and it's based on the strength of the party of the previous election. And our party would have taken a massive hit in the election because we lost votes and seats other parties would have gained. That's the way it is. And if you want to have an end to effectively corporate donations, which we've done away with, which is right, you have to then find that the state is there to do the actual management of the party. But in terms of the actual funding that went into the campaign, that came all of which from the actual funds that the party managed to fundraise.
And would you agree with Kate O'Connell in her contribution, and she, if you like, with parliamentary colleagues, did a separate study from Marianne Coy, that you needed really to turn your own people, your own Fine Gael grassroots members and your various units of the organisation, they should have been the focus groups, or at least used as focus groups as well?
Yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. I think that the one thing I took from what Marion said yesterday at our meeting in Newbridge was the real need to realise the untapped potential of, 30,000 members that we have around the country, their capacity, their capability, and how modern political parties can harness that. It's the same not just in our party, but it's across all the political system. We need to do that much better. We need to involve people much better. We also need to reach out to people who lost in the election, Sean. Colleagues who are members of the Oireachtas, people who are standing for the first time, to make sure that their experience is not lost, because who knows the time and the moment of the next election when that will happen. So we've a lot of learning to do from this, but I think it's important that big political parties, a bit like RTE or the Church or whoever, put their hand up and say when they get things wrong. And we made mistakes in that campaign. I said it, I think, on your programme. I think I was the first person to say I took responsibility for it, even though it's not one person. It was important that someone said that. No one else was saying it. And it was important that people who lost their seats heard it. Because I think in any kind of situation where a political party goes through that, we need to have some outcome at the end of it. Now, Fine Gael is in government. We are back with a Fine Gael Taoiseach and Taoiseach. Our principal opponents, Fianna Fáil, were there under their support, you might argue. The party's more government ministers than it ever had before. The party's going through a period of transition. There's fantastic opportunities now for the party, having come through this very bad election, even though we're now in government, to recreate and do things differently. And I think that's the challenge that the whole parliamentary party, from the leadership down, is going to rise to.
When do you think Andy Kenny should hand over to his successor?
Probably when Mayo win the All-Ireland. It won't happen this Sunday, I think.
But okay, that's that little aside.
I know the Dublin team, they're very, very strong at the moment, but I don't know when Eda's going to hand over the leadership. But
is it feasible for him to talk, or is it realistic for him to talk in terms of another 2 years?
I think the party's going through a transition right now, and everyone knows that. I mean, he's already said he won't be leading us into the next general election. People want to give him the time to make that decision. I've spoken to him about this. He passionately wants to get a few things done on the health and social housing side, on mental health issues especially, to kind of prove to the public that he gets the election result.
And he has a long agenda. He went through it with Rachel earlier: the budget, the North Inner City, housing, the 8th Amendment, mental health, as you mentioned, justice as well. And then he, of course, since the election, the two biggies that have landed on his desk are, of course, Brexit and that commission ruling on the Apple Corporation.
Yeah, and I heard his interview this morning on RTE, and it's quite clear he's a very full agenda head that the whole government has, and they want to get onto that task. But I think it would be very wrong for the party to be setting kind of arbitrary deadlines or timelines for his departure. It's clear that we're going through a period of transition as a political party, and the challenge for us will be, can we do this in government? Can we reform the party in government, as our members expect and our supporters expect, where it's very difficult, where previously it's kind of easier to do the reform stuff when you're in opposition. Now, that's going to be the challenge. I think we have a great chance. I mean, the economy is still strong. If we get 3% average growth for the next 10 years, we'll transform the country. And I think it's how we utilise the clear talents that are there in the party. Like, we now have the largest number of women TDs of any parliamentary grouping. It was the decisions that we took organisationally which brought a lot of those women on. You had Kate O'Connell earlier. She was elected because of the strategy we put in place. The people like Maria Bailey, the people like Josepha Madigan, countless colleagues around the country are there. So the parliamentary party is very strong. And I think as we go through this transition, and obviously Enda will move away at some stage in the future, we'll have a new leader. I think the party will be in a very strong position to win the next election.
Who do you think should be the next leader?
I haven't seen all the runners and riders yet, Sean. It's a good try on your behalf to try to get me to commit this hour in the morning. But we'll have to wait and see who the runners and riders are. And I
could name four of them anyway. Francis Fitzgerald, Simon Coveney, Leo Varadkar, and possibly the reluctant Pascal Donoghue.
All of whom would make great leaders, but let's just wait and see. Let's not just I know the media love this constant narrative about who's going to lead the Fine Gael party into the future. I think you heard from the Taoiseach this morning, the task ahead. It's a very full task and a very full agenda, and I think he should be allowed to get on and do the job.
Brian Hayes, Fine Gael MEP for Dublin, thanks indeed for joining us on the line there from Strasbourg. Lots of stuff, as I say, on parking. I could write a book on the abuse I've received when challenging people parking in disabled parking spaces. On one occasion, when challenging a businessman, I went behind his car to take a photo, and he told me if I didn't get out of the way, he'd run me over. And that's the polite version of what he says Anna in Walkinstown. Another one, John says, if parking spaces for the ordinary person were of a standardised width, there would be no need to use disabled spaces. Spaces in some parking areas are so narrow you'd need a tin opener to retrieve your car. And then another one, Helen in Limerick, I think some GPs are to blame for signing the form for patients who want the advantages of a disabled driver pass without the genuine disability. A local man who had a bypass many years ago still has a valid card and uses it constantly. We met him recently and he boasted about the long daily walks he enjoys. Unfortunately, my disability has rendered me speechless, literally. That's from Helen in Limerick. More after the break.
Today with Sean O'Rourke on RTE Radio 1.
Back by phenomenal popular demand, the RTE Concert Orchestra, in partnership with the IFI Irish Film Archive and Gael Inc. present Misha Era. Watch Misha Era, the patriotic 1916 Easter Rising documentary, while the RTE Concert Orchestra performs Sean O'Reilly's iconic score live. October 13th, National Concert Hall. For tickets from €20, see rte.ie/CO.
RTE 1916. Celebration. Commemoration.
Fed up with increasing car and home insurance premiums? Well, check out AIG Insurance Fair Deal rates for car and home insurance that rewards people with a good history. We'll give an excellent price if 3 years claims free. So get an AIG Fair Deal car or home insurance quote at aig.ie or call 1890 27 27 27 and see how much you can save. AIG Europe Limited is authorised by the Prudential Regulation Authority of the United Kingdom and is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland for conduct of business rules.
RTE Radio 1.
Rod Stewart, live at 3 Arena. Friday 18th and Saturday 19th of November. Tickets available now. Presented by Aiken Promotions.
Live music updates on RTE Radio 1. Tweet at Today SOR.
Yesterday in Kilkee in County Clare, while searching for a missing man, volunteer Coast Guard member Katrina Lucas lost her life. The boat she was in capsized in difficult conditions. Matty Shannon is on the line now. He's the officer in charge of the Doolin unit of the Coast Guard, and Katrina Lucas was on his team. Matty, good morning to you.
Good morning, Sean.
It's not a very good one, obviously, for you. And first of all, condolences to you and to all the friends and family of Katrina. A very, very difficult day for you yesterday, and you were on the scene fairly quickly, I gather.
Yes, thank you, Sean, for your kind words. For all the people all over Rhode Island who has offered us their goodwill and condolence to Bernard and his family and to our team. Yeah, we were tasked to go to the scene soon afterwards. We have a climbing team in Doolin as well. And we set up the climbing equipment as were the Clare fire service were there also. And one fire service man and two of us, Andy and myself, we abseiled down the cliff face. Probably 4 meters from the sea finished up, and we were about maybe 8 metres from James. He was had been washed up into a ledge inside underneath a cliff face. Luckily, with a big wave, but it was often washed off every now and again with a wave again. So there wasn't much we could do for him because he was so far away from us. We were trying to get a line to him just to give him support, to get him to calm down and to stay there. Because once he was on dry land, he was safe, you know. Even though he was washed off every so often, conditions were big at the time.
So he was washed initially onto this ledge and then washed. And how did he manage to get back onto it again?
It was a cove, so there was a small, like a U, we say, in one corner, and he would be washed into this little cove, and then as the tide would recede, he would be able to grab onto some rocks and climb back up again. You know, he was I don't know how he did it, but he did a great job sustaining life. I suppose life supports itself, you know, and gave him the energy to do it.
Yeah, and he was one of the 3 people on the boat, the others being, of course, Jenny Carraway and Katrina, who tragically died. And they were in this rigid inflatable boat. Have you been able to establish, and I know it's early days very much, have you been able to establish what actually happened about it?
No, we haven't as yet, and I can't go into the particulars because I wasn't there on scene at the time when the boat did capsize. All I know is that Jenny was recovered soon afterwards by the helicopter. She also was washed into the cove, but luckily there were currents in the area. She must have got caught in the current. After hitting the cliff face a couple of times, she got washed out into the bay again. And after that, I'm not sure what happened. Soon afterwards, the helicopter was in the air again. It was very difficult because there was an overhang. So the boat and James were way inside, also with Katrina for a while. And then the winchman was lower down and took Katrina up to the cliff top, you know, and then she was worked on by the ambulance crew and the paramedics and the helicopter.
It sounds like she might have sustained injuries as part of this this tragedy when the boat did capsize.
Yes, conditions are very bad. It's a deep water swell, so it was relatively calm, you know, within 50 metres of the shore. And when you have this deep swell, you just have big waves onto the shore. And in that cove, which, you know, is probably maybe 100 metres wide, there was the swell would just wash in, and it was a well of water all the time.
So it was a cove more than a cave then, was it?
It was. It was a big cove, and then there was just one small little shoulder inside in the very corner where, you know, the wave is eating away slowly, but thankfully it had left a patch there that James could step up on every so often when the big waves would come.
And tell me a little bit more, if you can, Matty, just about the exercise in which they were engaged. They were looking for a man who was missing for some days.
Yes, there's a man from Labasheen, it's close to Kilkee, missing since last Friday. And the Kilkee team and the Doolin teams, along with many hundreds of volunteers and local people from the area, because it's a local incident, we're all out on the cliffs over the last number of days searching, and conditions had been very bad weather-wise. And they were on just a general search, there were Coast Guard teams along the shore as well, overhead, searching. But unfortunately, the man hasn't been recovered either.
Yes, and then tell me a little bit more as well, if you can, about the circumstances in which you and colleagues, you abseiled down the side of the cliff there to I suppose, just to observe what was the situation. You got so close, but not close enough then to your colleagues.
Yes, it was abseiled down the cliff face. You know, we're in close proximity to each other on 6 different ropes. We used 2 ropes each, and the fire serviceman and Andy myself. Eventually, we were throwing a rope into James to try and just to offer him support, to let him know we were there to rescue him. It's just more or less to give him support because there was no way we could get to him to rescue him. So eventually, the fire serviceman got his rope to James. And by James, then it was a link to rescue, at least, to give him support. And then we got to feed a rescue strap through that rope to him with another line from the cliff top that the managers on top had lowered down. And at least then, if he did fall into the water, we would be able to pull him, and they could pull him speedily through the water, and we would hope up. But we kept encouraging him to stay where he was because he was on dry land. Once you enter the water, you have no control over anything. So as the tide, you know, he was probably there for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I don't know how long we were there. And eventually the tide was going out, and there were slack periods. So Doing the job, searching, helping, recovering, and often saving lives. You know, Katrina, I just could not say. She did over 700 hours a year for the unit, you know, as a volunteer in the dueling unit. You know, she was at top level on whatever she did, and the one thing I'm so happy for is she was also a climber, and she's in the unit over 10 years. And last November she did her assessment again, so we do it every 3 years, and she got a merit on her climbing the last time, and that made she go forward as an instructor. She was an instructor already in search management and search techniques. She was top at her game, whatever she did. She was an advanced search and rescue coxswain and boat. She, you know, there was nothing a hurdle to her. You know, she'd just get over it, go and do it, and talk about it later. She didn't push or be proud of it. She just wanted to do it and be there. She wanted to be part of the Coast Guard. It was an exciting life. She did what she wanted to do. She loved it.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the picture there on the Independent of the ropes going down over the cliff, and a party of people down there just above the water, and the rib is there as well, and I'm sure that you were part of that, but that's the kind of exercise that somebody like Katrina Lucas would have regularly engaged in.
Yvonne is right. She has been in many recoveries. She has been in many risky situations where we have recovered people and their boats breaking down, surfers, whatever it might be underwater. We do land search as well, and she would have been involved in managing those, in organising that. 1916 commemoration, she took part in that. You know, there were 2 volunteers from our unit, and that she was one of them picked to do that. She just loved the Coast Guard. That's what she wanted to do. Her husband Donald is also in the Coast Guard, and their family are steeped in it. They're just a small family from Liscannor. They have a small farm. She had an organic garden. They had their hens. They had their small family. They go on holidays all over the world as a family. They just had a good life, and unfortunately, it's terrible that a young woman could lose a life like this.
But it's clear, though, that she was somebody whose life cut short so tragically yesterday at the age of 41. It will inspire people into the future, won't it?
It will. Definitely, Katrina is someone to follow and to be proud of, and to just to be part of what she is and what she was. You know, we just want. There are many people in the Coast Guard, but Katrina was up there with the best of them, and there's no doubt about that.
Matty,
proud to have had her in our unit.
Matty, again, our sincere sympathies and condolences to you, to all her friends, to her colleagues, to her family, to Bernard and her children. May she rest in peace. Matty Shannon, officer in charge with the dueling unit of the Irish Coast Guard. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Today with Sean O'Rourke on RTE Radio 1.
An efficient history of energy efficiency. People think coal, oil and natural gas will last forever.
They realise that will not be the case. Energy efficiency becomes a matter of national and international importance. People realise they should be more energy efficient. So whether your business is, or Energia will give you up to 30% funding for an energy efficiency project, reducing your bills long term. Visit energia.ie/funding today. Terms and conditions apply.
You know you're Irish when you can't stop talking about house prices or the weather. You always thank the bus driver. For the crack is the best reason for doing anything. You call your mum Mammy, and like saying like a lot like. And when someone asks you how you are, you're always grand. You know your website is Irish when you have a .ie at the end of your web address. Every .ie website has a proven authentic connection with Ireland, and .ie is one of the most secure domains in the world. That's why over 100 Irish businesses sign up with us every day. Register your website as a .ie today. .ie, the official web address for Ireland.
Lifeline with Joe Duffy.
On the way back, the journey only took 10 minutes. My car took fire. We smelled a little bit of smoke first and we pulled in to check it out. Didn't really know it because we only lived up the road and we said, sure, look, we'll carry on. But we didn't make it home. More smoke started filling the car and sparks, and she just took off. Like, I think within 2 to 3 minutes, she was in full blaze.
Lifeline with Joe Duffy. Weekdays from 1:45 on RTE Radio 1.
Podcast today's show at rte.ie/today with Sean O'Rourke.
Marijuana use is illegal in Ireland. However, in spite of this, patients have long used the drug as part of their treatment to help alleviate symptoms such as chronic pain and seizures. A global medical cannabis summit takes place in Dublin tomorrow, bringing together a range of speakers in the areas of science, medicine, business and policy. And one of the issues to be addressed will be whether governments, including our own, should follow the examples laid down by the likes of Colorado and California states in the United States in decriminalising the drug. So how could it be used, and should it be made available to people who could benefit from it? I'm joined by two people taking part in that summit. Dr. Catherine Jacobson is Director of Clinical Research at Tilray, that's a medical cannabis provider in Canada, and also here Tom Curran, Director of Exit International. And in our Cork studio, from our Cork studio, I am joined by Dr. Chris Luke, Consultant in Emergency Medicine at Cork University Hospital. Good morning to you all. First of all, yourself, Catherine, I gather it was because of your son Ben that you became involved in this kind of research.
I did. I was studying neuroscience at Stanford when my son developed severe epilepsy, and I was actually at Stanford learning how to contribute to the discovery of new treatments for epilepsy when I met a father who was treating his son with cannabis. My son was treatment resistant, that is, he had tried 12 pharmaceutical preparations and not responded at all. So I was very interested in what might be in this plant that could stop his seizures. And that led me to explore the world of medical cannabis in California.
And what application then were you able to use in Ben's case that at least made some contribution towards alleviating his symptoms?
You know, it was a very difficult process because at the time in California there were no preparations that were appropriate to give to children. I was very interested in a preparation that contained cannabidiol, which is one constituent of the cannabis plant that is non-psychoactive but has this anti-seizure property, and it was not available. So I ended up trying various artisanal preparations that people told me were very rich in cannabidiol and low in THC, but none of these preparations actually helped my son, and some of them made his seizures worse. So I sought out the help of a chemist and learned how to purify cannabidiol from the plant itself, so I could provide a very pure component of the plant to my son, and that's in the end what reduced his seizure frequency.
And if I could turn to you, Tom Curran, you I gather grew marijuana yourself and used it to help treat your late partner Mary, who had MS. Now, tell me about her use of it and how it helped her.
Well, I don't have a medical background, and I know absolutely nothing, I suppose, about the chemistry of the whole plant. But when Mary's MS progressed, the prescription medication worked to a point in helping her with her spasms, which are just like seizures, and also with the neurological pain, which she had constantly. We were aware from, I suppose, forums around the world that cannabis was used extensively to treat both pain and spasms. So we tried it because nothing else was working. And the results were remarkable. You'd have to see it to believe it. That when Mary smoked, we originally bought on the street, but when Mary smoked and the spasms were coming on, her whole body would relax within 20 seconds. Now, the pain medication that she was using and the spasm medication she was using just didn't work. It also then reduced the pain. So she was comfortable after that, and then we grew it rather than buy it.
And how frequently did she use it then to deal with these spasms and pain?
She would smoke probably maybe twice a day, but I also learned to process it and to extract both the CBD and the THC from it. And we use that. I made capsules from that, and we use that for long-term effect, because the smoking, we found out, would wear off, or the effect would wear off after a couple of hours. But by using the capsules, she got maybe 8 to 10 hours.
And you made those yourself, did you?
Yes, yes.
And how did you go about growing it?
Very simply, when we have a beautiful garden, one of the things that Marty loved was her garden, so I was very keen on gardening. And it was very simple to grow. I didn't use any, I suppose, sophisticated methods. I grew it on the windowsill upstairs. We had a bedroom upstairs with exposed windows that the sun shone on for most of the day when there was sun. But it took a certain amount of experimental work on finding, for instance, the right strains, because there are so many different strains of cannabis. We had to find out which were the right strains that suited both the spasm control and the pain control. And this went on for a period of about 10 years before Mary died.
And coming back to yourself, Dr. Jacobson, aside from the use that, as you say, it had a limited effect, nonetheless it was there for your son Ben, what other uses is being made medicinally? Again, as I said at the start, you are Director of Clinical Research at Tilray, a medical cannabis provider in Canada. So who are you supplying?
So we're supplying 10,000 patients within Canada, and the law dictates that any physician can prescribe it for whatever indication he or she believes would benefit the patient. And so patients are using it for a variety of conditions, including pain, epilepsy, anxiety, insomnia. But I would like to add to that we don't actually have solid clinical data that helps patients understand how to use the drug. So,
and how is it dispensed then to people?
In Canada, we grow it, package it, and ship it via mail.
And that's all legal, I presume?
It's all federally legal and regulated by the federal government in Canada.
And do you ship it outside of Canada then?
We don't ship it to patients outside of Canada yet, only for clinical trials.